Good evening and a warm welcome to Big Budget Business, where we highlight the lives of prolific young people making strides in their respective fields. Now, today's guest is a celebrated author whose books are doing a lot to change the lives of young people in Botswana. Our guest is Mr. Boikhutso Pilane. Mr. Boikhutso Pilane, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Big Budget, and a very good evening to everybody out there who's watching the show live, and to all the young people in Botswana.
Yeah, that's
It's
great.
such an honor and pleasure to be here tonight.
It's a pleasure having you, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, so perhaps the first thing that we'd like to know is, what is Boikhutso Pilane's backstory? Tell us a bit about yourself.
Well, Boikhutso Pilane is an author, a motivational speaker, a poet, and all of these things have turned me into an entrepreneur, because this is how I survive, and making these things into a service and offering them to people is what makes me a young entrepreneur. So my brief background is that I am a God-fearing young man, a Christian, also
very important.
born and bred in Tlokweng. I've been raised there all my life.
Okay.
That's briefly who Boikhutso Pilane is.
So even education-wise, you were in Tlokweng the whole time.
Yes, education-wise, I've been my primary school, junior school, I've been in Tlokweng, and then I went to senior school in Gaborone at Naledi, senior secondary. From there, I then moved on to University of Botswana, where I went to do my Bachelor of Arts in Social Sciences, where I wanted to pursue a career as an economist.
Okay.
And that's where the story of my life with school ends. And I guess they'll get to hear more of that as the show goes on, eh?
All right. All right.
Yeah, yeah.
That's perfect. Thank you very much for that. Perhaps now, if you would tell us more about you, Boikhutso, the entrepreneur. How exactly did you get to this point that you're at?
Well, my entrepreneurial journey started, I think, in 2018.
All right.
That was after I could call a major setback, but also a turning point of my life. I was a partner for a short while in a company with someone. That's basically how I started the journey of entrepreneurship. I started off as a partner. This was after I quit my job of marketing and sales. I've been in marketing and sales for a very long time, and then to a point where I felt like there was a lot for me to do, because during these times as a marketing and sales agent, I'd have to go out to schools and motivate people. I'd get maybe a few phone calls here and there from other companies seeking my services, because on the side I had already started on my purpose. So at some point it became kind of a conflict. So I had to decide which way to take. I needed more time on my hands to do all of these things. So my entrepreneurial journey started with me now having left my job, now working with a friend who used to be a brother of mine, starting a company, and it didn't work out. So it not working out told me something. It opened my eyes to me about who I am. You know, when I looked back, I looked back at the companies that I had helped grow. You know, I looked at this guy's company who had come in for just 9 months, and we managed to turn just a youth-funded business into something that was even getting more jobs from corporates, from BPC, from any other company that you could think of. You know, so that setback opened my eyes to me and to what I carry. That gift of sales, that gift of being able to turn one pula into two pula. And then I was like, I asked God, why this setback? Why this business betrayal? Why am I feeling hurt? He said, because I'm shutting this door so that you open your own door. And my own door now is what? The Sales Heart. The first book I ever wrote was published by my own company and sold by my own company. So that's how the entrepreneurial journey started.
Wow, very interesting. You see some things that I picked up there. You said, I had already started on my purpose.
Yes.
And you know, usually they say that if your business is purpose driven, and any life generally that's purpose driven is more fulfilling.
Yes.
I like how you mentioned that. And then you did say that it was the setback that actually made you know more about yourself and what it is that you had wanted to do.
Yes.
Wow, that's great. So, dreamer, right here, we have dreamer, unstoppable, motivated, and bold.
Yes.
Dumb. That's the title of your first book.
Yes.
Rather catchy. Dumb. Right. But maybe because you did say that there were some deep things, if you don't mind, could you share with us how this book came about and where you were perhaps physically, mentally, and spiritually?
Okay. Dumb was published in 2018. Was self-published, like I mentioned, sold through my own company. When I wrote Dumb, it was a point in my life where financially it was very difficult. You'll remember that I didn't have a job. Dumb came after that setback, a few months after that business setback that I told you about. So I am here now, I have no job, I have no income. And obviously those things challenge your spirit.
Of course.
If you're a praying man, you get to a point where you get to ask God questions.
A lot of questions.
I was at that point in my life where I was asking God a lot of questions. Why was I asking God a lot of questions? Because on the other hand, I had followed his word.
Yes.
He said, seek me, serve me,
Yes.
and I will serve you. If you work in my vineyard, I'll work in yours.
Straight up.
I was out there doing things for charity. I was out there being a young board member in organizations that were doing change.
Yes.
I was out there in schools preaching and telling them about my life story and offering motivation. And when somebody outside looked at my life, financially it was not improving. It was not even changing anyway.
It wasn't evident that something was happening.
So all of these things were putting so much weight and so much pressure on me. And I was asking God a lot of questions. So how this book came about, it came as a dream.
All right, that's interesting.
So you're here, you're busy asking God questions. And obviously when you go to sleep, those things would come. They pop in your subconscious mind, or maybe you get a vision in line of what is troubling you at that moment.
Okay.
So this dream came this way. I was on a setup like this.
Wow.
It was an interview, but this interview was conducted by a woman.
All right.
And this woman was interviewing me about a book I wrote.
All right. Okay.
Okay, about a book I wrote. And then I thought it was just a dream. I woke up, but the vision was still there. I couldn't shake it off like any other dream that I've had. And then I couldn't pray because spiritually I was challenged at that moment. I couldn't pray, so I went down and opened my phone. I switched on my phone and Boikhutso my mobile data. I got WhatsApp messages. And then I got this inspirational video from a friend of mine.
Okay.
And this inspirational video was, the pastor was asking people questions. Like, you have this dream. You know, you've been through so much. You have this experience. You have this wisdom. When are you going to write your book? And I had this dream about a book. And the first thing I get from this video is, when am I gonna write a book? And for me, it connected. This guy was talking to me. He went on to talk about other dreams and sports and everything. But by then, my mind was off.
Yes.
I was now on the book. And I was like, God, yesterday I had a dream about a book. And today, the first thing, the inspiration I get is to write a book with all the experience and the pain that I felt.
Wow.
So I knelt down and asked God, are you saying that I should write a book? Because, I've tried writing, and probably I have unfinished manuscripts. I have 3 pages that I wanted to start writing when I couldn't continue. There was no flow, there was no inspiration. Isn't this going to be one of those trials where it's going to end up with nothing? But when God speaks, I think your whole body or your whole surrounding just perceives it. And then my heart just told me that, go and open your laptop and start writing. The first thing I did when I got to the laptop, I wrote the title, I Quit. And after the title, I Quit, I started thinking about all the things. As a motivational speaker, I started thinking about all the pains that make people want to quit. I put myself in my shoes and in other people's shoes.
Yes, empathy. Yeah.
And after that, I had my first chapter.
Wow.
From there, the chapters, I had the themes, like 19 themes for the whole book. From there, every day, I woke up to an inspiration to write to that theme.
Wow.
It was the time for me to write because I believe God had permitted it or had opened that door for me to write.
Wow.
So that's how I started writing. My first chapter being I Quit.
Yes.
When you open this book, the very first chapter you'll find in Dumb is I Quit. That is how the journey of writing started.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Wow. Quite an inspirational story there, and I can see that it's very spiritually backed.
Yes.
Would you say that having spiritual backing has been very useful for you on your entrepreneurial journey?
Yes, because one thing that I have learned from the Bible is that a man's gift shall create room for him at a table before great men, before kings and queens.
Amen.
It means that your gift, what God has put inside of you, is what is going to change your life, is what's going to put food on your table, is what is going to make a name for you and for your future generations to come. Once I figured that out, I now had to dig in and find my gifts.
Yes.
I found that my gift is speaking, my gift is writing, my gift is poetry. And every time I offer these things, they actually put food on my table.
Wonderful.
And every time I actually use my talents and my gifts, I meet great people like BigBudget. I meet great people like you can mention any other guy just from using my gift. And that was all spiritually revealed.
You know, there's already some traction here in the comments. Before we even go further, let me remind you, ladies and gentlemen, that we are live. There will be a link shared in the comments if you'd like to call in and speak to our celebrated author, Boikhutso Pilane, the author of Dumb and a second publication which we'll get into. You can call in and if you'd like, ask any questions that you have. So you might be an author or somebody out there with writer's block and you're asking yourself, what can I do to get myself to dust my shoes, get back up and get back in the ring? So this is the time. We've got a comment here from Archie Boswell who says, I like being aware and being aligned enough to see the path. That's just an amazing feeling. And you strike us as someone who's definitely aligned because you did mention this purpose aspect. Yes. Wonderful. And then we've got Kitso Poloha here who says, you go, my brother, Boikhutso Pilane. A lot of support that you've got there.
Yeah, well, thank you so much for that appreciation.
Wow. So now let's talk a bit about your second publication, Rise Over Ashes and Rain.
Yes.
Raw. Rise Over Ashes and Rain. What are some of the enlightening elements that you'd want your readers to learn from this book?
Well, the very first thing I think I would like to want people to know is from this, there's a favorite chapter in this book. It's very personal to me, and I always hope that people will pick the book. I love all the chapters in this book, but you'll understand why it resonates with me so well. It's called, It's Not the End of Your Story.
All right. Tell me more.
The book is called Rise Over Ashes and Rain. What are the ashes? The ashes are the pains that we've gone through, the poverty that we want to get out of, the betrayals, the setbacks that many people have settled for, the mistakes that we make, like I did in my young age. I went into alcohol, into drug abuse. I fell from the path that I was on. I had mentioned previously that I wanted to be an economist.
Yes.
I could have been an economist by now, but I fell on a rocky path. I went astray and moved with the wrong people, and I started doing the wrong things that the wrong people do, and I destroyed my life. That was an ash, you know. Having come from university, could have been an economist to working in a car wash and polishing people's tires. It's an ash. And I've seen a lot of my people settle for ashes like these. The pains, the setbacks, the betrayals, the divorces, and they feel like their lives will never be the same again. When I wrote this book, I had looked at my life, the journey of my life, and the power that God had in me and the transformational power that God had over me. And I was like, if I can do this, then I can probably help somebody whose business is being shaken.
Oh, yes.
I can tell them that even if COVID is destroying your company, or it may seem like COVID is destroying your company, is not the end of your story.
Yes.
Even if you're coming from a failed marriage, or you have messed up your life like I did with adolescent mistakes, is not the end of your story.
It's not.
That's what I wanted people to know through this book. It has therapy, it has counseling, and then also has personal development.
Wonderful.
I want to help you to understand how a guy who used to polish tires at a car wash, how he found his purpose, how he found his gifts, how he moved from just writing one book to writing another book, and to doing other things and doing other things after that. That's the personal, that's the personal development part of this book.
Wonderful.
And then when you go, it has motivation. Sometimes we feel demotivated. We don't always wake up being enthusiastic about life. We don't always wake up being enthusiastic about our dreams. So there's a part where we call a part of this book that we call motivation, the winner's circle, where you just find motivation from everything that surrounds you, and motivation from even death itself. So I wrote this book looking at what COVID is doing, ravaging lives, destroying families, even the repercussions of COVID on families, the abuses that came after the lockdowns, the lack of food, everything. I wanted to tell people that God is saying, let us not settle for the ashes, because there's a beautiful future that awaits us. And in this future, we are kings and we are queens. Yes. We reign, we are in control of our situations, we're in control of our finances, of our territories. And yes, we are focused on the purpose that God has called us for.
Wonderful. You know, it's really hitting home how a lot of us have a lot of ashes that you know, when you're walking on the street, people might not be aware that this person is actually going through the most, you know, and it's really great to see that you were able to use what others would have deemed the end of the road for themselves to inspire other young people out there, to show them that, right, yes, you had chosen one path, but in the spirit of someone who doesn't give up, you had to follow your purpose. You may have digressed, you may have lost a few things here and there, but you got back up. So this is a story of an entrepreneur, really. Resilience. You've managed to turn your passion, your talent into a business, something that puts food on your table.
Yes.
We must say we're very proud of you for what you're doing. And now you did introduce this issue of COVID-19. And you see how COVID has really disrupted business as we know it in a lot of ways. I want to know specifically for you as an author, what would you say are some of the strategies that you are using to sort of remodel your business in these pressing times that we're in?
Yes. Something that I've always, a model that like I've said, I've been in sales before, you know. Something that we always do as salespeople and as marketing people is to set target territories.
All right.
You know?
Target territories.
Yes. Every day when you wake up as a salesman or as a saleswoman or with a product in hand, you kind of ask yourself, who are my potential customers?
All right.
Where can I find them?
All right.
And then from that point, you write every potential customer down and you mark out a strategy, a map on how to pursue these people and reach their doorstep.
Okay.
And then you reach them. Some of them buy from you, some don't buy. Okay. And then after that, you get to explore that strategy and you see if you get to ask yourself if it's working for you, and you observe as time goes on. I get it. So for me, when COVID now hit the strategy, it hit basically the target territory that I wanted more was individuals, families, and social media sales. That's where I had, and the social media sales brought a lot of individual sales to me. Okay. So now COVID having affected people, people's finances are affected, no lie. People's purchasing power has been affected.
Absolutely.
So now we spend more on things that we need than on things that we want. So, and then I realized this. So what can I do now for my business to keep afloat?
Okay.
There's another territory that I have not explored. Institutions,
All right.
parastatals,
Okay.
schools. There's another market that I've not maybe harnessed.
Okay.
The virtual market, the book Kindle direct publishing stores.
Okay.
Reaching out to other people internationally through email or any other how.
Yes.
Reaching out to any other platform that you can to tell them about what you do and what you have.
Yes. Broaden your scope.
Broaden my scope.
Yeah.
That has not only helped me survive as a business, but that has also increased my territory.
Wow. Wow.
This means that if the economy gets better, I won't only have individuals and families supporting me, I'll now have companies and institutions and organizations that I directly sell to.
Yes.
And that alone gives me a hope and a belief that someday I could turn my company from just a sales shop into an actual publishing company.
Wow.
Because
So there's
now
a dream for
I've
the
created a market.
Of course.
I can help now other writers to find market for themselves.
Yes.
Because one thing you can ask any author in Botswana is one thing they can tell you is that it's so difficult to sell a book.
I'm sure it is.
It's so difficult to get your brand out there. But I believe that with all these things that I'm doing and with all this path that God is taking me through, other doors can open up for me. And if I open up these doors, then they can open up for other people as well. So always be thinking outside the box.
Yes.
If you're challenged, if this strategy is not working, go back to the drawing board. Reassess things. Ask yourself, what can I do better? How can I improve my approach next time?
Yeah.
I'm telling you, you'll always find an idea after idea of how to get better and how to keep growing in your art.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for that. What I picked up from there was how you had to go back to the drawing board because this COVID sort of pushed you into a corner. But then you thought to yourself, how can I broaden my scope? What are those target territories that are still open for the taking? The virtual market, going out, broadening your scope basically in terms of your online presence. You spoke about the Kindles and different aspects. This is something that COVID, so you could say that COVID did indeed have a positive effect on how you were strategizing for your business.
It did.
Wonderful.
It did. It actually, COVID has polished me as an individual, you know, because we've been in denial that the world is changing.
Absolutely.
We've been in denial that money will be flying on the air. Soon we won't be holding money on paper. We've been in denial that business is moving online, is moving virtually. We've been in denial of this thing. And when COVID hit, we realized these things. So some of us, we had no training in these areas. We had no training. We had no idea on how to tap into this social media and explore this virtual market.
Of course.
So you taking time to read an article on how best to market your product. Reading an article and finding out about your demographic and whatever that you want to find.
Yes.
That alone is a plus. You have grown. So COVID has polished me. COVID has given me more resilience than I had before it.
Wonderful.
COVID has also expanded my mind because I'm always thinking, where am I going to grow?
Yes.
And how am I going to grow?
Wow.
How can I create more income?
Absolutely. No, that's great. It's great how you've turned something that is really deemed negative but made it positive for you and for your business, which is something that I think a lot of us young people in business should try to do. Take those negatives or the ashes that he speaks about in his book and see how we can rise over them and reign.
Yes.
Now, tell me, Pilane, what is the last book that you read yourself?
Well, the last book that I've been reading is The 5 a.m. Club, eh?
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
All right. Tell us a bit about it.
It's a book by Robin Sharma, and I believe a lot of people have read it. It's a great book because it's one book that when you have, you're sure to know that you will keep growing in life.
Oh, great. Wow. Wonderful.
When you have that book, it also inspired, let's say, my personal development part of my book, you know, and it also inspired that aspect on my life.
Yes.
That it's one thing that I can take from it. That if I'm to be great, if I'm to achieve this exponential growth that I want, if I'm to touch as many lives as I want, as I need, and as my dream tells me, then I have to keep on working on my art.
Yes.
That's the speaking. And it's something that I've seen you do as I stepped into the show, you know. You were polishing yourself, preparing yourself. Not many people take time to do that.
Gotta look fresh,
Not
man.
many speakers
look
take
fresh.
time to look at the mirror and practice their speech. You know that.
Yeah,
you
putting me
know
out
that.
there now.
No, man, we gotta celebrate great things,
Thank
you know.
you, man. Thank
That's
you.
the thing, you know. So when you see something good, you always learn from it. Pick something from it. That's what I picked, you know. You don't take this thing lightly.
No, not at all.
You might have practiced Mabani, prepared yesterday, but you prepared to the very last second.
Absolutely.
That's how we reach exponential growth. Tap into your gift, find your gift, cultivate it.
Yes.
If it's reading, if it's studying, if it's going for masters, if it's going for your PhD, how can you cultivate what God has placed inside of you?
Wonderful.
That's
Wonderful.
something that I've picked from the 5 a.m. club.
Oh, great.
And if you've picked your gift and you know how you want to serve and the change you want to bring in the world, it helps you now to make that gift world class, the service world class.
Global
That's
standard.
one thing that you can learn from the 5 a.m. club.
Oh, great.
Yeah.
Great. So it's definitely something we might want to look into. The 5 a.m. Club by Robin Sharma.
Yeah, by Robin Sharma.
Wonderful. So perhaps how can people who would like to get copies of your book, how can you be reached?
If somebody wants to reach out to me, definitely social media, like we've been saying. The world is moving virtually and it's moving online. Find me online, Boikhutso Pilane, on Facebook, Instagram, Boikhutso Pilane, Twitter, the same handle, and LinkedIn, Boikhutso Pilane, and YouTube. Check out my poems, my poetry on YouTube as well, on my YouTube channel, Boikhutso Pilane. And also, I think that people would love to get a signed copy, a signed personalized copy for themselves.
Wonderful.
If they're in Gaborone and surrounding areas, just need to give me a call at 71717628. Just repeat the number again.
Please do.
71717628. And then from there, reach out to me on my social media. I'll respond to every message, every comment, every text.
Wow. Mr. Pilane, let me take this opportunity to thank you and to commend you for this wonderful work that you are doing. Tell me something about the first book. There was something special about your launch of this book.
Yes.
You want to tell us just a little bit more about your launch of Dam?
Yes. When I launched this book, I saw what you call grace.
Okay.
The grace of God, you know, it finds you somewhere and then it takes you somewhere.
Of course.
And then I realized that God has a plan for every gift and every dream that He places in our hearts.
Okay.
You know, you'd imagine your first book in a country where the reading culture is not that at that level as the international level is. And you'd have a lot of fears. How many books will I sell? Will people appreciate it? So what I saw was grace, like I said, because at my very first book launch, it was in Oasis Motel. The first beautiful thing, it was by the poolside, eh?
Wow.
The ambience was amazing, red carpet. Imagine a guy from the car wash now is welcoming people on a red carpet event, that ambience, that it was so classy, it was so good. And 170 people came to the launch, meaning that on the first day on that night of the book launch, we sold 170 books.
Wonderful.
Not only that, from there, we went to collaborate with the Boikhutso from Mascom, Sebero from Mascom, and we went on to go to SAFM, to Josie FM,
Wonderful.
through this book.
Wow.
And it was just God saying that, I gave you the dream and I told you to write, and I have a plan for everything that I've given you. Oftentimes we don't start because we want to see how the whole picture is going to unravel. We don't start because we want to see the end of the staircase.
We're to invest in the end.
Take the first step.
Yes.
And trust in the one who has inspired that dream and that desire.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Mr. Pilane, thank you very much. It's been a wonderful show having you here, man. Thank you so much for coming out. And I'm sure a lot of people will reach out to you to get your books, Raw and Dumb. So once again, Mr. Pilane, thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Big Budget. It's been a wonderful show and a great opportunity sharing my life with Botswana out there. Remain blessed, man.
Thank you
keep
so
growing.
much, man. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Right.
All my enemies will suffer my wrath, but those of my household will enjoy my embrace. I refuse to let my weakness get the best of me. Be more hard and less attack.
Right, so today's 2-minute tip. If you're a young person out there thinking about how to invest your money, there are some things that you can research which are available to you as any member of the public, basically, that you can research and probably invest your money in. Firstly, we'll talk about shares. Shares, it's basically more like you purchasing ownership or a portion of ownership in a company, and your returns will come in two forms. Either dividends, if the company does make a profit and distribute these profits, or in the form of capital gains. Capital gains is simply when you've purchased shares at a certain price and then you sell them at a higher price if the price of the shares does go up. Number two, you can invest in bonds. You can go to banks and inquire about how to invest in bonds. These are more like you, instead of purchasing shares, it's more like you giving that company that you're investing in a loan of sorts, which will then be repaid at maturity. And between your purchase date and the maturity of the bond, you will receive what are called interest payments or coupons. And then lastly, you can research exchange traded funds or ETFs. Now these are all available for us here in Botswana. ETFs, what the ones that we have do, they track the prices of different commodities or precious minerals such as gold. So when the price of gold goes up, that ETF that you invested in, its value will also go up. But remember, if it does go down, the same thing can apply to the value of your ETF. Now, those are ETFs that track the prices of other investments. And then there are also ETFs which are sort of bundled up, or taking a collection of the shares of different companies, combining them together such that if you buy that one ETF, it's more like you've diversified your risk and you've bought shares in many different companies. So it might be something interesting for you to look into: shares, bonds, and ETFs. It's been a wonderful show. Thank you so much for your time. From me, Big Budget, and the team, it's good night and God bless. And never forget that you were born for so much more.